That's funny. Okay. Well, yeah, again, I think it's interesting how our friendship has developed because we've known each other for, I say since interning, which was, that was that was literally like probably around May of 2020.
Actually, to be precise, June of 2020.
Sure.
June 19th.
Sure. And I feel
day,
like,
yeah.
I feel like you had reached out to me like about like before the internship started. Right?
Well, what happened was I saw you in the Zoom chat with our like team. It was everyone's names was listed out and like what team they were assigned to.
Right.
And I didn't realize that you were the third intern. I thought there was just gonna be two interns,
Yes.
me and this other guy named like
Drake.
me and
Yeah,
Drake.
Drake, yeah.
So like, obviously I was like, oh wow, there's another dude here. I was like, hey man, really nice to meet you. I'm Caleb, and I also was really excited because it was the other Asian. And I was like, oh, there's not that many Asians in our intern class. So very excited to have another Asian on my team that I was on as well.
Our Cleveland-based bank.
Our Cleveland-based investment bank had Asian people in it.
Yeah.
Wow, what a surprise.
Now that you actually say that, I remember you messaging me on Zoom.
Yeah.
And because I also remember you had, I think you like asked me about getting added to like the intern like group meet chat or something.
There was a group meet chat.
Yeah.
I think we also, because of that, we made like a just you, me, and Drake's Snapchat group where we could just talk about whatever.
Yeah. But also, like, I remember I only mentioned the intern group because I was like, I didn't want to be a part of it. But you,
okay.
I just like do not want to like be a part of this.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, yeah. So we've known each other for 3 years now. Yeah.
Yeah,
like literally, just about 3 years.
Basically 3 years.
That's
at this
crazy.
Point.
And oh man, I guess like first impressions of when we first started interning together, because I feel like obviously we didn't work together because like obviously we were doing our individual stuff, but we had our group projects.
We had our group project. Well, I mean, Dennis, you can go first with how you felt about me.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've talked this before, but like I was very much more of a hardo, but not in the sense that like I was like a finance hardo, but it was just like I just wanted to get the return offer because I was like, I was thinking a few steps ahead. I was like, I don't want to work at this Cleveland-based bank. I want to like make it in like New York City, Wall Street or whatever. Yeah. And like I was very much taking our group project seriously, and all that paints a picture of like when I was like working with you and Drake, I was like, gosh, these idiots are like, I'm like, dude, they literally don't know what they're doing. I feel like I'm like that person who is both like the group leader who also does all the work.
To be fair and to validate your feelings at the time, I think you're valid in thinking that because I think both Drake and I, we knew some stuff, but not enough to carry our own weight in the group project to the point where I think it was pretty clear to us that you were getting frustrated with our inability to do anything and actually plan either. You were literally like, I remember there were moments where it was us three on the call and like I would be trying so hard. Like I'm not even kidding you, I was trying so hard to like plan based off of the parameters we were given on the project. Yeah. And I would just say something and then Dennis would immediately just like say something else that would like overtake my idea, and I was like, well, I guess Dennis knows what he's doing, so I'll let Dennis take over. No, but it's like I think at the time, like rightfully so, because we were so focused on just trying to get like our offers, like it makes sense given like you just want a full-time job after college. Like I don't blame you for being frustrated because like this is what's on the line.
You know what's funny is like I vividly this is also just paints how stupid investment banking and like just other jobs are, but I think I told you, like I had gone into our internship like already having done like an Excel course, like a PowerPoint course. Like I like knew how to use like shortcuts in Excel. Yeah. And I remember seeing like you or Drake, I think both you and Drake share your screen and like watching you try to do Excel like in our model, I was like just silently just like, this is just so painful to watch. Like that's to the extent that I was just like, oh my
cringing,
God.
Right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, like to be fair, I think both Drake and I, we didn't really prepare Excel in advance. We were just like, I think it won't be that hard. We'll figure it out. Like that was my mindset. Oh, we'll figure it out. It's all common sense anyways, right? But it really showed that you like prepared in advance, and I mean, you carried us through the group project. I'll say
But then
that
I think I just looking back now, it just goes to show how stupid all of that
I
was.
mean, true. Like, yeah, the thing is, the group project didn't mean anything at the end of the day
Yeah.
because it wasn't a real life scenario, and we were just doing it just so we could demonstrate that we were capable of just putting something together.
But then,
That was the
I was
thing,
like, damn, I just put in that much effort, and it's like I really didn't need to. But
Yeah,
you know, like
yeah.
obviously overdid it. But then, like, I do remember, I'm grateful for that group project because, like, you know, doing like those calls, like, I feel like we started to like chip away at like the exterior, or like actually start to like get to know each other when we were talking about things like, you know, like relationships and like girls and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was really good times when we would just take a few breaks here and there outside of just talking about project stuff, where we'd be like, oh yeah, you know, I've been like, for me, I was I was
Amber,
talking
yeah.
about Amber, my now girlfriend, right? Like we were just like, oh yeah, I've been talking to this girl, and you know, I
Yeah.
think there's something really going well there. And then
Yeah.
I would ask like you, and we'd ask like
Yeah.
Drake. So it was just really good to hear a little bit more of like the personal side. And I think those are the conversations that stuck with me. Nothing about the project ever stuck with me,
Yeah,
other than the
yeah.
fact that we weren't able to do it, other than you. But like, yeah, I was just having those more meaningful conversations. And then I don't know if you remember this one time where I was like, hey man, you know, I'm assuming you really love Asian food. Like, what's your favorite type of Asian food? And you're like, dude, just gotta go with Chinese food, man. Like,
course.
I know I'm a Chinese guy, and I was like, oh, dude, me too. And we just started connecting over
Yeah.
that, being in the Subtle Asian Traits
Right.
Facebook group.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's something you should still check. I don't really check it
No, I
nowadays.
deleted Facebook.
It's no, exactly. So I mean, it was a small thing at the time, but I just wanted to connect over being Asian too, because that was one thing.
Yeah.
When I had seen your name, I was like, oh, this guy can probably relate with me in some
Damn.
ways.
That actually means so much to me, because I feel like, honestly, when I think back to like my mindset then, I was very much, because like honestly, like I feel like me interning at Key
Yeah.
was kind of a point of like shame for me, because I was like, I thought I was above working at Key, given like just, you know, who I am, like just like how I was wired. So in my mind, I went to the internship being like, I am not gonna make any friends. Like I don't care. I'm just getting my return offer so I can like lateral and like get on my merry way.
Yeah.
Which is like why I was like, I had no interest in being part of like any of like the intern groups or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But I think about it now, it's like, dude, that actually means so much to me that you actually. Because I clearly didn't reach out. I was not
That's
reaching out to
okay,
any of the
no.
Asian kids, but like the fact that you reached out on Zoom to like start building that connection, and then you were again the one that initiating those conversations about like, you know, our shared cultural identities and like
Yeah,
experiences, like that really I feel like set the stage for our friendship
yeah,
during our
yeah.
internship, and like obviously that would later carry over into full time, which our first time meeting was what, August? No, it was like July.
It was it was either late July, early August of 2021.
Okay.
And yeah, it was what was it? You guys had flown in. Everyone flew in from like New York, San Francisco,
Wherever, yeah.
like wherever they were working from, and we all just met and went to like the zoo.
Oh right.
Yeah, that was one of our
Yeah,
trips.
I feel like
right?
okay. But also like before we go there,
Yeah.
I feel like did we keep up during the school year? Like occasionally
It
in
was-
Snapchat.
I mean, yes, but it was just logistical.
Oh,
like,
right.
oh, yo, did you guys make sure to fill out
right,
this form?
right.
Like, oh, make sure you do this, like your drug test, right?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't anything deep.
Yeah.
And then before we had started our full-time gig, it was just like, oh yeah, really excited to see
Yes.
you guys. So it was all very surface
Okay.
level things.
Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah,
really
yeah.
deep happened.
Yeah. And then I remember, I guess like our first time seeing each other in person,
Yeah.
because Drake was with COVID, was at the volunteer event where we were handing out food.
Oh yeah. No,
Saw each other in
exactly.
person for the first time.
We were packing. We were packing a bunch of vans or like,
yeah.
people who would drive up and like because they needed food, right?
Yeah.
There were the people who just could use the extra food, and like we were packing X amount of food into their cars. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a super hot day. I remember
Yeah.
that much.
But you were saying first impression in person.
Yeah.
You haven't told me what your first impression was.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, yeah, like Dennis, like I was there for like I don't even want to like maybe an hour, and I think you guys had pulled up a little bit later.
We
The
did,
New York
yes.
guys
Yeah.
pulled up a bit later, and I think you show up in like a Gymshark tank. I think it was like I'm pretty sure you showed up in a Gymshark tank, and it was like kind of cut up a little bit.
It was a quarter zip, dude. I was
No,
wearing
it was a hot day though. I think it was a tank.
no, it was a quarter zip, dude. I remember when it was a quarter zip.
Was it? Wait, it was a long sleeve.
Yeah, it was a quarter zip.
It was like 90. It was like 90 degrees out though. I'm pretty sure you were wearing a tank.
I was not wearing a tank.
All right. Either way,
Yeah.
it was Gymshark something. Like, dude you had like your white Nike socks,
Yeah.
like your 5-inch inseam shorts, and I was
yeah.
like, ooh, this guy definitely seems like a gym, like
Oh
like
my
the gym
gosh.
is his life.
Oh.
Like I just know. I mean, you know, to some degree, I think it still kind of has a hold on
sure,
your life,
sure.
of course. But I was like, yeah, this guy's definitely a gym nerd. Like, I don't know how
Yeah.
much I can relate to this guy.
Sure.
That's in that regard. And, you know, I like, not to say that I didn't have a good first impression of you, but it wasn't like, or sorry, not to say I had a bad first impression of you, but it wasn't like great. At least.
Sure.
Yeah. Seeing you in
That's
person.
interesting. I have actually a similar experience. It's kind of interesting that we're talking about this now. But like,
Yeah.
also the reason why I know that I was wearing that was because like I remember sitting right next to Armand, and he was like, "Dude, do you play tennis or something?" Because I was like very much like dressed like a tennis player.
Oh,
Like
okay,
the shorts, like the quarter zip, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you mentioned that because I mean, truth be told, I feel like the gym was very much like a part of like my, I don't know, like identity or like, you know, what people knew me for throughout college and whatnot. And it was definitely a point of pride for me. Then like similarly, it was like I couldn't help but like notice you. I was like, oh, he's kind of like a scrawny Asian kid. So it's like it's so interesting how it's like we can't just like
fair.
it's like we can't just look at each other as like, oh, like he's just Caleb or he's Dennis, or like it's like, oh, he's probably a gym bro, or like, you know, whatever, or like just super like masculine or talk. And I was like, oh, dude, he's just gonna. Obviously, not in like a malicious way. but like,
I get
off like
that.
first association, I was like, no, it's kind of funny now. Like I was like, oh, he's kind of a shrimp.
That's my favorite food, man. Hey, you remember?
Oh, no.
You remember? So
That's so funny.
no, but I like how crazy is it? Like, you know, from first impression, like I guess semi-negative first impressions, right, to now like we're just really good friends.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like
It's
it kind of goes to show that like our initial, to be fair, like just judgments or assumptions about each other were like very surface level. It's like just how each other look.
Of course.
And then I'm trying to think of like how we grew closer during full time, because obviously again it's like in banking you're not really working together that much. And I feel like I guess like I do recall like since we had that Snapchat group, we would just like complain about like our experience and like our coworkers, because like it kind of felt like it was like us three against the world in a sense, because our group was just like toxic. And which not to say that like any groups in banking are really great anyways, but ours just felt like even more so, because it was just like pretty much all white people from like the Midwest.
Not
whatever.
really. I didn't really feel like there was a sense of any culture at all, right?
Yeah, and I feel like our friendship really took off honestly after Drake quit.
Yeah, because then I think in that him quitting only left it to just us two with working in the same team, and like now we had to really rely on each other to get through, because before it was just the three of us, we could sort of have like a group dynamic. Yeah.
And I think like to kind of build off that, it was, and like kind of bringing it back to the culture point, where like, I mean, admittedly Drake couldn't really relate to us as much. I mean, I really appreciated Drake because he seems like a very open-minded guy.
Oh, he would ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciated that. But I feel like we weren't really able to. It was like a lot more explaining rather than like just like a common shared understanding of us being both like Asian, Chinese, and like navigating this experience in like banking in our group. And then like after he left, it was like that really opened the doors for us to actually have those like conversations about our lives and like who we actually were, like the really deep kind of conversations.
Yeah. No, I think well, it even started a little bit before Drake left, when I remember we had a group Snapchat call, and you had, and let me know if you remember this, but you had said on the call, you're like, hey, do you guys also feel like you don't really like the job that much? And me and Drake were like, yeah, actually, we don't really love it that much. I don't know how long we're actually going to be able to stick around because we don't love it. We always kept saying money's great. Yeah. That was the main thing that always we could point to be like, well, we could stay for this.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of what planted a little bit of the seed to where, because we all were thinking it. Nobody just wanted to say it. And to be quite honest, it was that part of me where I was like, I don't want to say it because, well, if I say I don't like the job to Dennis, who I kind of know as a hardo, maybe he'll tell someone else that we don't like the job, and then we'll
get in trouble.
I don't know, maybe we'll get in trouble.
That's a really good point. I mean, I think about it now because honestly, like I do remember that call. But I don't remember like how it started that we were talking about like, like things about like, oh, like do I actually enjoy this or not?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like now that you mentioned it, I don't really know what compelled me to ask that or say that.
Yeah.
Because similarly, like I think that's just such the unhealthy part about banking and just like, not even banking, but just like any sort of like corporate job where it really does feel like you just can't really trust people.
Sure.
And I mean, none of our experiences really gave us any faith in that either. But similarly for me, like I feel like because I was in New York with like just our two associates and Jacob, who were all white, just dudes. And I was like, okay, I can't release these guys. I'm a new guy. And I also felt like on an island by myself. And it was like to be able, because like I was having all these thoughts. I was like, dude, what the F are we doing with this? Is so stupid or pointless. And then for both of you to affirm that was very like validating for me. But that's interesting, honestly, like I totally see that now. It's like that's kind of how I felt with other people in our group was like again, including like our fellow analyst in New York, I didn't feel like I could be like, yeah, this job sucks. Because I was like, oh, like what if he's gonna like, snitch on me or something?
Yeah, right. Like you feel like you can't give too much away. Like you wanna sort of talk about how you feel, but if you tell them way too much, well, then they're gonna know how you really feel, and then you're gonna get in trouble. Like there's a certain like veil of fakeness to everything, right? Like you can't ever say, oh man, like the hours suck, because then people are gonna be like, well, I guess you shouldn't be here, right?
Yeah, you just get you just get put down or devalidated, and it's like, I mean, it's the same thing now in corporate sense where it's like you have to like navigate what you say and like kind of be truthful without being like fully authentic. You can say things like, oh, like, it's like it is what it is, or it's like, like we're pushing through it, or like whatever. But like you never be like, yeah, this job sucks. Like, why are we here?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like us being the two new guys and like being the two Asian dudes, I feel like after a while, when you opened up with that statement of being like, hey, do you guys feel like you don't like this job either? Because I don't. I felt like at that point, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy feels exactly how I feel. Maybe I can just open up more to him. And to that, we started talking more openly about how we really feel. And then it led to even more discussions about what we want.
And I think like, because I feel like if I recall correctly, that initial call or conversation, because I do remember having that call and it stands out to me, was like, after like starting with that question, we started talking about like what's next then, like, because we were all like, yeah, like we don't think we can like just do this, not because it's like hard, because it's just like pointless. And I remember like Drake asking like me that question, like, oh, like what do you think about like you're gonna do next, whatever. And like I was very much in the mindset of like, which is like crazy to say now, I was like, oh, like I'm just gonna switch to like a tech group and like that'll help position me into going to like VC or growth equity, because like that seems like more like my speed. Like, I like to work with people more, which like again, like I feel like that very much shows like my mindset from interning, where it was like I'm like always thinking like steps ahead, but only steps that I've like seen other people do that I'm like, oh, like I guess that's an option, like it makes sense, like I might as well just shoot for it.
No, I mean, I was also kind of in that same mindset to where I was like, well, I guess after this, I could just do a 9 to 5 and I would be okay for the rest of my life. But really after that, I didn't think too much of what else I wanted. And I was like, well, all I want is to not be in this job, right? Like it's so extreme. All you know is you just don't want this.
Exactly. And it's like you're literally, and that's like the frustrating part, where it's like, because it's just such an extreme, you're just like, anything's better. It's kind of like you're going from like, it's like, yeah, if your experience is shit, anything's better than shit.
True.
Yeah.
True.
And like, I feel like it's interesting, because after that call, I think Drake quit like literally that week.
Yeah,
like literally that following week he quit.
I remember he just walked up to our associate Emma and he was just like, yeah, this isn't for me. And he just had like a quick 20-minute conversation with her about how he just hated it, and he just like walked out that day. He didn't no 2-week notice, no nothing. Just walked right out, and I think that was like a moment where I really took a look at myself, and I was like, man, like if a guy like Drake, who I really admire his values and I like him a lot, if he just got up and quit like that, I mean, what does that mean for me?
Yeah.
You know, like, does that mean I should quit too? Because I feel like I don't really love this job. Like, why am I staying any longer than I should? And to be quite honest, it was just the money that I knew was coming in February when our bonuses were paid out.
Yeah.
Like, that was the thing I was kind of holding out for. I was like, oh, well, if I stick around a little bit longer, I'll at least get a little, money compensation for that.
And like honestly, I feel like you saying that I don't give Drake because I actually thought the same way. Like I just have so much respect and admiration for Drake just as a person and his character.
Yeah.
And then like when he just like quit, just like cold turkey, like I was like, dude, this guy's got some serious like guts about him.
Yeah.
But he was telling us about how he had like planned out his like finances and all that beforehand. Like was like really prepared to like quit with like nothing lined up. And that I feel like that inspired me later on, and when I guess both of us, but. Similarly, it was like, damn, like, why not? Like, if he can just like leave all this behind, like, why not? But then, like, I feel like for us, it was when we still, even though they might have planted the seed, it took us like having our conversations, which really started with the whatever like that stupid like group thing was for like our.
It was our end of the year review with our team to see, look how well we are. Right. It literally wasn't even for anyone outside of our team. It was just a brag within our own team that we are good.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was a business review, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. And like we thank gosh, but like the grace of whatever got like put on like the same like a deliverable together.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think that was during Thanksgiving or?
It was over like a little bit after Christmas break.
Okay, that's because I definitely do remember it being like I literally remember being home in Pennsylvania for like the winter holidays and just like being in like my dad's office working off of his like monitors and just like sitting on calls with you talking, well, obviously being like, this is so stupid, but then us diving into conversations about like fulfillment and our values and like what we actually want out of our lives.
No, that was, I mean, those were just the beginning of like what would lead to even like more I guess more like amazing conversations about like what we actually wanted, but it had to start with like, like, why do we not like the current job that we are in right now? And like, what would we find more fulfilling in life? It's just the basic things.
And like, I don't know if I've given you this context before, because that time frame, like December, like end of like the winter holiday season, there were like two very, I don't know if we talked about this, there were like two very monumental, like I guess like events that stand out to me in my life that like were just like leading up to that. The first was I had taken a trip to Boston where I was like visiting some younger like college friends of mine, and that trip was honestly like the defining like moment or domino of my life, where like I literally spent like pretty much the entire trip just like spending quality time with people I really deeply care about, building new relationships. And I remember sitting on the bus back from Boston to New York and being like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? It's like I just spent that entire weekend feeling like the most, just like, how I've been like this weekend with you in Chicago. I was like, every single day it's just felt so full and like rich, and just like being able to like just spend so much quality time with people I care about and like build these like really new meaningful friendships. It just made me question a lot of things. And I remember going back into that like winter time, seriously, like again, asking myself like, what am I doing with my life? And I came across the concept like ikigai, which we've talked about, about like purpose, fulfillment, why you get up in the morning. And I actually came across that book while I was home for, like the winter holidays, and we were still working. I think that's what started me asking like you those questions or initiating those conversations about like fulfillment, purpose, and like what we want out of life.
Oh,
I don't know if I told you about that.
I remember you telling me about that trip to Boston, and then like, yeah, I do. I also do remember the Ikigai stuff. I just like, yeah, I don't remember when exactly that was,
Yeah.
but it makes sense given the timeline of things that happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's, I mean, yeah, that's exactly what popped off. You know, me starting to think about what I want because of what you said.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm eternally grateful that like you started off that conversation because I wouldn't have begun to think about that at that time. I was only thinking about, well, what other corporate jobs are out there
Yeah.
that will allow me to have a good work-life balance but still earn a good salary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I I don't think during those calls, I think during those calls, it was just like kind of general conversation about like, again, like fulfillment, purpose, values. But I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I had mentioned that I wanted to do YouTube at that point.
Not yet, but it was. Well, I actually don't know. You may have talked about like, oh, you know, as a kid, you were talking about more the creative side of things. You were like, you know, as a kid, like as kids love to make just random stupid movies. Like, why can't adults do that too? Like,
Yeah.
that's something I really loved. So not explicitly YouTube at the time,
Yeah.
but it was getting there. You were getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like honestly, because like I remember like reading through my old journal entries and I had like written about like YouTube during that time. But I think like it was kind of similar of like, not being able to like fully say what you wanted to say, but you kind of have to like kind of edge or like inch towards that.
Yeah.
And then I feel like it really took off, I guess, beginning of 2022. Yeah. Like, yeah, like during those times, like beginning like January, February, where I really started to just build a lot of sort of conviction, like wanting to quit and like start doing YouTube. And I feel like that's when I mean, admittedly, I feel like when I started having like those own thoughts of mine, I started to try and have those conversations with you because I kind of realized that a big thing for me, and like kind of like you mentioned earlier with us having that initial conversation, but like you don't like this job,
Yeah.
was I just like wanted to see if like I could affirm to myself that these thoughts and like these ideas and like dreams of mine were like feasible and real, especially with someone who like understands and has like literally been in like the trenches with me. So I feel like that was when I was like starting to ask you about like, hey, like what else would you want to do? Like not just like a 9 to 5.
I think when you had started asking me those questions, yeah, at the time, I think initially I didn't have an answer for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you recall as well. I don't think I had an answer as to like, oh, I want to do YouTube. Oh, I want to do like music, whatever. But it did at least get me started thinking of like, well, what do I really like in my life? And that for me, all the influences I've had, I think comedy has had the biggest impact. And that's where I started thinking about, well, I really love to, watch comedic sketches online or just like watch funny things.
Yeah.
Why don't I, someday, as a career, I would love to do something that just makes people laugh. I don't care what it is. And that ended up with me starting with just comedy writing classes.
Yes.
Yeah, comedy writing classes via the Second City.
Yes.
In Chicago. Yeah.
And dude, I remember like, and like, I think you started those classes because I remember like at first it was to kind of like try and like close the loop here was because we both quit at the beginning of March after we got our bonuses. And, But I remember when you were looking at your job, like trying to like, take your next like day job, and you had like your own sort of internal like dialogues or struggles with like, compensation, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I remember like really talking to you about this was like, what is enough?
Yes, I actually do remember this conversation very clearly because I had gotten I had interviewed with this solar company and like they had given me an offer, and in my opinion I was like, I don't know if this salary is enough. And to be honest, I really hadn't even defined what enough was. I just knew I wanted more, I guess. And then I brought it up to you, and you said to me, and I remember this question very clearly. You were like, well, like, okay, rank on a scale of like 1 to 10, how much you would take this job, 10 being I would very much take this job, 1 being I wouldn't take this job, like if compensation were just not a factor, right? And I said like, oh, it would be like an 8.
Yeah.
And then before, like with compensation, I was like, oh, maybe like a 5, something like that, a lot lower. And that made me realize like, oh, I guess it's like I valued money so much, and I had to also really think about, well, what do I really need?
Yeah.
And you had also was it like New Year's or something? You had sent me a book.
Yes. Pathless Path.
Yeah, The Pathless Path, and that was about how people were able to, like, people just figured it out how to make ends meet. Like, it's not like you need large stores of cash to keep you alive. It's like, and by the way, our job and like the way we treated money with our high-paying investment banking job at the time, we definitely had savings to go for a while. So for me, I think it was an irrational fear of running out of money, even though it's like, bro, like I'm gonna be making money at this new job anyways.
Exactly.
So I think it was definitely your encouraging words of like, well, just think about, do you even need a lot more money, right? And it's really about like the people at the job. Like if you like the people that you're going to be working with, then I think that's already like a really good thing. Yeah.
And like obviously my mindset towards corporate jobs and all that has changed since then.
Yeah, sure. But at the time,
but like
advice,
a few thoughts there, because like I ask and like circle back there because I remember bringing that question up because I wanted to illustrate the emphasis, like the importance of your time. And I asked that because like that related to like, okay, like, yeah, you could like take a job that makes more money, but you trade away time. And it's like, but at the end of the day, it's like time is more important, right? If you have enough to support yourself, then like what else do you need? But you can't buy more time. And it's like, okay, what do you do with that time? And now it's like, I feel like when you started to think about, I think I do remember you mentioning like, oh, like, yeah, I'd wanted to like potentially do like a sketch like comedy writing class. And I remember you saying you weren't going to pull the trigger because it was too expensive.
I did.
Yeah.
That was my initial thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I think it was probably after our conversation in my relationship with money and like maybe taking this job offer where I was like, you know what? Like I do have a good amount of money. Like I'm just going to do this class. Because your thing was like, well, if it's going to be worth something to you and you feel like it's going to benefit you a ton in the future, like why wouldn't you spend that money, right? You're going to end up regretting that decision later on. Same with like your decision to pull the trigger on a camera. Right? Like that was a hurdle for you, right?
That was a hurdle for you. Oh my gosh, I have thoughts about that, but I want to describe that to you. Like, I feel like I remember snapping you about like when I got the camera, but like first thing is like, I think it's important to note that like we're both minimal people where it's like, yes, we were earning like our salaries, which like, you know, we're very fortunate to have been able to be in that position.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's like, not like we're like balling out and like, what, like, you know, for context, like you were living in Cleveland where the cost of living is super low.
They're cheap.
So you were just really saving.
Yeah.
Even though I was living in New York City, I'm very much not partaking of the New York City lifestyle.
Yeah.
So like we were very much like smart with like our money and like savings and building runway. But similarly, I remember, dude, like the day that I pulled the trigger on my camera, which was like my first one, because initially I was like, oh, like, do I really want to spend this much money? Blah, blah. It's like such it's a lot, like it's a decent chunk. And I was like, this is literally me investing in myself. And if I'm not willing to invest in myself, like what else is there to invest in? And I remember going into the office because there was that stupid 4-day in rule or something. I showed up and no one was there. I literally walked all the way, like got dressed, walked all the way to the office. No one was there. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, like this stupid archaic rule they're not even enforcing from Cleveland and I'm in New York and like no one's here.
Yeah.
And I remember the camera I had ordered was like back ordered because of like chip shortages.
Yeah.
And then by the grace of whoever, like I got an email notification saying like, oh, the camera's back in stock on the way back from the office.
Oh.
And I was like, I remember seeing that email. I was like, I was so excited. And you know, as soon as I got back, ordered it. And when I got that camera in the mail, I felt just so much excitement and joy. I'm literally getting chills now thinking about it because when I saw like this, like that box and that camera, I just saw like the world of possibility just like in front of me. And that was like when we were still in banking. We hadn't even quit yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I could definitely say the same thing about when I got my camera too, and it was because you got your camera first that I had also like wanted to get my own camera because I guess right like from sketch comedy I was like, where can I actually make this happen in a medium where like other people can see it, and I thought, well, Dennis is doing YouTube. I think I could maybe give YouTube a try too. So that's when I ordered my own camera, and oh my gosh. Yeah, it was like, I remember opening it and just like started taking a bunch of random videos of stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, the quality is so good.
So crisp.
Yeah, but the first picture I have on there is actually of my dog who was laying on my bed
That's so
next to
cute.
me.
That's so cute.
Super random.
Okay.
But yeah.
Dude. Also, like, I want to point this out, like, because I remember, like, after you had taken, I think the first thing was that you were doing the sketch writing classes.
Yeah.
And, like, the sketch, like, pieces that you would send Drake and I, they were genuinely hilarious.
Oh,
like,
thanks.
I was like, oh my gosh, like, you have this, like, talent for just, like, being able to, like, put words on paper without any, like, image or visual effect, like, make me laugh. I was like, dude, that was so awesome to me and, like, just so, like, grounding for me to like see you like, you know, take that step. And then when you got your camera, I was like, this is so awesome.
Yeah, it just meant so much. Like, oh, I could finally film a sketch. Like, I could finally film myself trying to be funny. And you know what? Like, going back to like those sketches that you talked about, being able to, you know, finally type out a funny sketch for the first time, that just felt so freeing to me, I think. And I remember the first time I had actually made my sketch and sent it to Dennis, and I said afterwards, like, oh my gosh, I felt like I was like a child again. I got that childlike sense of like enjoyment and also just like excitement because it's like waking up for Saturday morning cartoons. Like you're excited because you know that it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah.
Like you know what's coming up is gonna be awesome.
Yes.
Albeit the creative process can be, you know, sometimes more frustrating than just watching Saturday morning cartoons. But yeah, like it just felt like I was becoming a new person.
Yeah, 100%.
And that was where everything changed for I think you and me.
Yeah, and like, well, first off, safe to say, even though I woke up excited on Saturday mornings when we were in banking, it was still with like a sense of like caution or like hesitation. It was like, yep, like thank gosh I get to like, you know, have a little bit more like freedom, relaxedness, but like I could still literally get called to like just go do some shit right now on a Saturday afternoon, which is like, that's like its own whatever. But so like, yeah, waking, like for you to say like waking up on Saturday mornings, like cartoons, like that freedom is just like, considering like the life that we were living is just so much in contrast. But I wanted to ask this because I feel like we haven't had an extended conversation about this before. But what really drew you to comedy? You know, and like I can talk about like my own experience as well with like I guess what I'm trying to do with YouTube. But like, what about comedy in particular resonated with you from when you were a kid that made you, as an adult, however many years later, think back to it being like, this is like what I want to do or give a shot with my time?
Yeah. No, thank you for asking. I think really the biggest thing for me that comedy has been for me is like it was just my way of coping with things. You know, whenever someone like I used to as a young kid, I would get very butthurt. Obviously, when kids would make fun of you, as would like most kids. But I learned that like, dude, comedy's like a defense mechanism. Like, dude, you can turn people's insults into like a weapon you can fight those people with. Like, you know, people would make fun of me. I'm short and like, oh, I'm short enough to like eat out your mom or something. Like, you know, just something stupid like that. You know, just like really, really like. Sorry, is that? Not
I mean, dude. At the same time, it's like, dude, like that's just. I mean, that was like us in high school. We would like. I mean, no shame. It's like we were just saying stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Yeah, no, like, not like I'm not any saint either. I've definitely said my fair share of just like vulgar and dumb stuff in high school.
Yeah, yeah. No, exactly. And also it was just coping for me to like deal with the tough things I was going through at the time. Like when I had lost my mom, it was just like I wasn't a very emotional kind of guy. So the best way for me to deal with it was just like, well, I'm gonna watch funny videos to comfort myself.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that's gotten me through so many hard times. Is just like learning how to like laugh things
Yeah.
off, and not to say that being emotional is a bad thing. It's just for me that was just how I dealt with things.
Yeah.
And it still holds very true to this day.
Yeah.
I always will defer to laughing things off. Sometimes in scenarios where I feel like maybe it wasn't that appropriate to like laugh things off,
Sure.
but that's just how I've always coped with stuff, and it's carried me through so much in my life. And famous comedians that I look up to are like just such an inspiration to me in terms of like, well, just first of all how funny they are,
Yeah.
but how they're able to, especially the ones I look up to, they're able to strike a good balance between like being serious when they need to, but also just being able to be
Yeah.
funny. Yeah.
Dude, no, thank you for sharing that. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, I resonate with that a lot because, like, well, in the sense that I feel like, again, for us growing up as Asian, it's like, yeah, comedy is such a defense mechanism for us where it was like, okay, like, I'm going to hurt myself before you can hurt me. Because it hurts less
Yeah.
if I do it. So it's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to make a joke about me being, like, an Asian, or I'm going to make, like, the squinty eye jokes before you can.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's like, oh, like, they're, like, all, like, laughing with me, not at me. And it's like, every time you make a joke about yourself, it's like you're slowly chipping away at, like, your self-worth or, like, how much, like, you respect yourself, which at the end of the day, it's like, it was like that was worth trading if we could get like other people to like accept us, which is like,
Yeah.
I think about that now and like, obviously I don't regret, it's not the most proud that I could be, and obviously I don't want like to raise my kid like that, but similarly, it's like, that's the thing where oftentimes when we go through like these sort of experiences, like challenging experiences, it's like, they're the ones that shape us the most, and it's the ways that, especially for you, right? Like you mentioned, like going through like that tough time with like your mom's passing and whatnot.
Yeah.
And also just all the other stuff like going on with like your like experience as a kid.
Yeah.
It's like, what medium makes you feel like more understood or like less alone, or like makes the situation more like just like bearable, or like helps you get through it really. And I can like share my own experience with that with like my own YouTube journey. But for you, it's like, that's like one thing. That's like genuinely, I don't know if I always loved that about you. Because again, like I was more of a hardo, or like a stick up my ass kind of guy. Like, and you always had like that childlike, just like lightheartedness that I didn't have, and I always loved that about you when we were interning, working together.
No, thank
And I remember like, I don't know if you remember this. It just like, I told you, like it pissed me off when one of our coworkers was like, oh, like Caleb is like didn't take things seriously enough, so kind of like just like immature, blah blah, all this stuff.
Oh.
And I was like, what? Because he was just like didn't care as much as you did about this job that is like unfulfilling and like whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, like you wish you could be like him and like be able to like actually take things like lightheartedly and like be positive about it.
Yeah.
You know, and like I just wanted to mention that.
No, dude, I appreciate that. I feel like one of the most important things in life in general is just to like, yeah, I feel like you can't ever take anything too seriously, right?
Yeah.
Like you just, if you do that, you're never gonna have fun.
Yeah.
You're gonna become like those sad like old people who are just angry
Yeah.
about everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Also, sorry, sidetrack, but
Yeah.
when you're saying someone said I didn't take things seriously, was that someone like one of our IB like
Yeah,
coworkers?
yeah.
Oh, who's like? Do you
Yeah.
mind me asking who said that?
What am I gonna say? Like,
Or like,
it was one of our co-analysts.
oh dang.
And you could probably like put some context clues, but I'm not gonna like say it like
okay.
out loud.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. We'll okay.
Yeah, you could.
I'll ask you.
Okay,
later,
sure,
yeah.
sure. Yeah, but it's like in a similar sense, for me, just as much as like comedy was like your coping mechanism or like way to just like feel like more understood or like just make the best of your situation. That's what YouTube was for me. You know, like admittedly, I've talked to you before. Like I don't have like the greatest like family dynamic or like relationship with my parents or just like growing up and whatnot. And on top of just like all the other just factors and like stress of being like this Asian kid in like a predominantly like heavy white neighborhood trying to play different roles while trying to figure myself out, like I just never felt like understood or myself except for when I was in my room with my doors closed and just like watching YouTube and like
Yeah.
all the YouTubers I watched served like different roles in my life. Like there was this, I kid you not, like white Mormon family called like the Shaytards, like Shay Carl and the Shaytards, like a white Mormon family who did like daily vlogs. It was like him, his wife, like 3 kids, like I don't know, like then like extended family too, like his like you know aunts, uncles, cousins, whatever. And I watched their vlogs every single day. I always looked forward to like their like holiday specials, like the Thanksgiving, Christmas holiday specials, because I remember just like laying in like my freaking twin size bed that I had all throughout high school and just like watching their videos and feeling like I was a part of like a happy family that I didn't have at home. And like having like parents who like actually felt like they like, you know, loved me unconditionally and like
Yeah.
it was like they served that role for me, like being like, you know, my family that I didn't have. And then like I was yes a gym rat because I got into fitness in high school for football, but I started like watching YouTube fitness people to like learn like how to like be better and be more knowledgeable about lifting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those guys, one in particular, Christian Guzman, like I watched was like my mentor, like I have an older brother, but like watching him, he was like the older brother I never had. He was like the mentor who, literally his motto, I don't know if you have, but like his company is called Alphalete. His company motto is learn more, be more, dream more. And that just resonates with me so much, and especially as a kid. And for him, that message and like who he was like showing me and like, you know, encouraging and inspiring me that like I could be anyone I wanted to be. I could do anything I wanted to be when everyone in my world, like my parents, my peers, society, media was telling me, you can't be this, you can't be this, you can't do that. He was telling me I could. And for me to be able to garner like just that much like impact from these strangers on the internet who I never met or have spoken to in person, for them to really like have the impact on me as like a kid, like to this like shy, insecure, like Asian kid to feel like less alone in the world, to feel like he could make something of himself. That was like what resonated and stuck with me for so long and planted that seed. I was like, I want to be a YouTuber when I grow up. I want to be a YouTuber so I can have the same impact on people as like these people did for me. But it was just like, again, like, you know, similar with comedy, right? It's like you don't see freaking Asian kids like being like stand-up comics or like being showrunners or writers or like being like athletes or YouTubers or whatever. And it was like, even though like I like felt that strongly about it, I was like, like I can't be that. I was like, I don't want to be a doctor, so I'm gonna go into business. And I was like, okay, well, I need to like get the most like prestigious business job.
Yeah.
That's like the equivalent of being a doctor. So I was like, let me just go become an investment banker.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's like it's kind of that thing of like, well, representation matters, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's. I definitely share that same feeling where it's like, yeah, I think as a kid, you know, you watch all these movies, all these different YouTubers. A lot of them probably don't look like you,
Yeah.
and so it's just tough to imagine yourself being in that spot, and you're like, well, that's cool that they can do that. I'm gonna go do my, you know, Asian path that my
Yeah.
parents have laid out for me for stability in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's very much what we were on before, but you
Yeah.
know, now look what has changed, right?
I know.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that's the great thing is that our parents, you know, now are very like they're just very supportive.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I can let you talk more about your parents, but it's just like before my parents were very much like, well, just make sure that you have stable everything, and then if you want to go do something with your hobbies or like take things a bit further, then you can do that. But we
Yeah.
want to make sure you have this foundation and like set
Yeah.
up for a good stable
Yeah.
life.
I think we talked about just like job. Or like, what was like the conversation like when you told your parents you were quitting?
Yeah, they were just really excited for me because they had seen how miserable I was
Yeah.
in my job. I mean, I would complain to them every
Yeah,
single
yeah.
time I came home. I was like, oh man, I wish I could spend more time with you guys, but I have so many emails I have to get back to.
Yeah.
And just like so many people pinging my Microsoft Teams or whatever. And like they saw the struggle, how unhappy I was. And like I had mentioned this before to where my mom, even before I started the investment banking job,
Yeah.
she was like, "Oh, I know what this job is like. I don't think you're going to last that long in this job, knowing your personality."
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll stick around for a few years, just kind of figure it out.
Yep.
Blah, blah, default answer.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, NPC answer.
Yes.
And after I quit, she was like, I knew it. I knew you wouldn't last. I'm very proud of you for getting the money, but I knew you wouldn't last because that's just not the kind of person that you are.
Yeah.
And I could talk forever about how she was like, oh, I'm right, you're wrong. She was definitely harder on me about it, but
Sure.
like it's just that thing of your parents. Yeah, to an extent, I think your parents do probably know you
Okay.
pretty well. At least my parents know me pretty well, and like they had even foreshadowed the fact that I wasn't built for this type of
Yeah.
intense, heavy job. And for me to just think like, oh, well, maybe they're wrong. Maybe I'm okay for this job and just kind
Yeah.
of disregard and think I'll be fine. Well, I don't know. It was just maybe ignorance or
Yeah.
well, I don't know what you want to call it, but it
Sure.
was just us thinking that we are something we're not.
Yeah. I have a few thoughts of it. Did your like dad slip your mom like a 50 after that or something?
No. Yeah, I mean, my dad is less vocal than my mom, so I think my mom was definitely like, she's more of like she can read into people's
Okay.
personalities just from interacting with
Sure.
them. My dad's like more on the quiet side. Yeah.
Okay, I have a few thoughts there. But to start, I guess like I'll kind of tie like my own experience when I told my parents I quit. Because similarly, my parents saw like I was like not happy. I mean, similarly, it's like, I'd be home for like holidays. I'm just like cooped up in my room, just like tapping away at a computer and like not spending time with my family during these like holiday times when my entire family's back.
Yeah.
And I remember like when I quit, I told them, and like it was, at the end of the day, it was just like they just like wanted me to be like, their thing is always to me is like just be happy and healthy. And it's just like, it's so interesting to me now, and like, it's like a whole nother rabbit hole to go down to. But like how I was like raised in a way where I didn't feel like I could just pursue what I wanted. Like I had to like get a prestigious job.
Yeah.
But in the sense that like every parent wants their kid to be happy and healthy.
Yeah.
But like we grow up in a way, even if they're not telling us, but like, maybe it's like society or our peers or like being in like business schools or like other like circles that like convince us that like happiness is like, 6-figure jobs, nice apartments, like vacations and all that.
Yep.
And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is like they just use that blanket definition of happiness. Where like happiness for me, man, is just like yesterday, where we just got to, just like go to church and have like some like nice dim sum,
Right.
get some like cheap pastries, sit and like on a bench a
Yeah.
couple times, and just like that's it. And like how much, like does not cost that much. Does not cost us having like a banking salary to do that. And my other point there, because like I love that point. I have another question I'll ask after this, and I'll pause if you want to say anything. But I remember when, dude, like I remember like when people would ask me how I felt about going to banking, like during college, senior year's wrapping up, and like people were like talking about their plans, and like people would ask me how I felt about going into banking, and I was just like indifferent.
Yeah.
Which is not, I was just like, yeah, like it is what it is. Like, I know what's gonna happen. Like, we read enough Wall Street Oasis where it's like, yeah, I know I'm about to get slapped in the face and not have a life or control, but it's like, what else can I do? Like, it's like I signed up. It's like I signed up for this.
Right,
I signed up for
right.
like this whatever, and it's like this like sense of like resignation where you just don't have a choice because you don't think there's another option. And then going into banking, it was the same thing. I was like, wow, I just am indifferent towards this. I just don't feel fulfilled. But it was always so interesting to me where like I would meet people in New York, whether like it was like total strangers or like I would meet like I would like meet a friend or or I guess like a mutual friend or like an acquaintance of somebody. And when they'd ask me what I would do, I would always like dodge the question. I'd be like, because I wasn't proud of it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, like I work in like New York City finance, and like hope they would like read between the lines. And they'd ask me like, oh, like what kind of finance? And I'd be like, oh, like I'm like do like investment banking. And they'd be like, what the hell? You're an investment banker? Like, again, given like my personality, they're like, how are you an investment banker?
Yeah,
I
I know.
And like, I probably could have thought about it more at the time when I was because literally like, I don't even know how many times I got that from people. I was like, dang, if all these people are saying like, are like questioning why you are doing what you're doing, that's probably a pretty good sign that you're like not in the right path. And like I just like again like I just like couldn't allow myself to acknowledge that because it would have been like an acknowledgement like damn I just like spent all this time, energy, and effort grinding for something that was completely like wrong for me, and all of like whatever was like for waste kind of. I used like that, and like I feel like that's at least how I thought about it. I was like damn, am I really just better like waste all like whatever I just invested into it just to like have it not be what's right for me.
Oh, exactly. No, and I think maybe like a small point to what you just said is like, we work so hard for this quote unquote prestigious job, right? Investment banking, which like, I mean, you talk to most ordinary Joes on the street, like who even knows what most of these high up corporate jobs even do?
They don't.
And first of all, even if they do know what they are, most of them probably just don't care, right? Like that's the thing.
Yeah, that was my thing, and like I realized that through like my interactions with people is like, no one gives a shit what you do for work. They care about how you make them feel.
Yep.
And it's like how do you treat them, and how do they feel in your presence, and that has nothing to do with like your resume. And so many people, I don't know how but it's just like especially in New York, that's like just so pervasive, is that people just like are so focused on their resume and like what they do and not who they are and like how they treat people.
Yeah.
But in reality, like no one's gonna remember what company you worked at or like what role you in. They're gonna remember like, oh, he was like that person who like really just rubbed me the wrong way or was only talking about work when I met them. That's what they're gonna remember.
Yeah. I think for a while, honestly, that was me too. Like all I could talk about was work because it's just I hated it so much, right? Like I was that guy.
And the thing is like I know people like that, and like it honestly makes me sad when I talk to them. And it's like I just don't, like you said earlier, so you don't want to like end up like that old frustrated, resentful person. But like that's where it starts, and like I was like I don't want to be that person. No. Yeah, and like I want to bring. I have one thing to say about that, but question for you was like, how did you feel when you got the offer, like the return offer?
Oh, to work for?
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, oh, great. Well, that means my life for the next maybe 1 to 2 years is not going to be good, but
okay.
I'm gonna get some good money and then I'll figure it out from there. Like that was my mindset, and I signed it knowing that I was also signing away part of my happiness, but I was like, you know what, for this senior year, at least I'll be happy then.
But in the moment, did you feel like any sort of like excitement or like anything?
I was like a little bit excited just because I was like, oh, I don't have to worry about finding another job. That was the one thing that was like, woohoo, yay, I get money too. Yeah. So, and my parents were also like, oh, thank goodness we don't have to worry about you being employed, not employed, graduating. Yeah.
Yep. And it's like from my own experience, I remember getting that return, like the call and like being on like my bed in my parents' house.
Yeah.
And like I remember like going down the stairs, going to like my mom's office and like telling them. And obviously they were excited for me, like we're like congratulations, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And like I went upstairs and I was just like felt nothing.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's it. It's like cool. This thing I just worked and like thought was like the pinnacle of like my, college pursuits or whatever. And like I just don't feel excited. I was excited for my parents. That's like why I was like, what to tell them. Because like every time, like, I don't know if I talked about this, like every time like people would ask me, it's like, not in like an indulgent way, but like, I was like a hardworking student. Like I did well academically and extracurriculars to again set myself up to get this kind of prestigious job.
Yeah.
Whatever is banking or whatever. But in the sense that, like I did all of this for my parents, because whenever people would ask me like, Dennis, like why do you work so hard? Like why do you study so hard? I was like, it's for my parents. I want to make sure my parents sacrifice, being immigrants and like all they did to like put my brother and I through school like was worth it. And in my mind, worth it is like a high salary job. I have, like whatever. I have like they don't have to worry about me anymore, which like I'm glad I did because I definitely but like didn't necessarily mean I needed to work in investment banking.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I remember just going to senior year. I was like, yeah, great. I have like my job stuff figured out, and I don't have to like go through like the struggle of like finding a job as like a college senior. But then, yeah, just like then like then like the realization is like, oh, this thing that I had like signed like a year ago is like now like starting to become real, and I'm like, I'm not excited anymore. I'm like, dang, I know what I'm getting into, and it's like,
Was it a feeling of dread almost?
dude, yeah, because like similar to you, I was always looking for this journal entry of mine, but like it was from the senior year, and like I remember like talking about like I was like, yeah, I'm basically acknowledging that like I don't have control or freedom over the next 2 years. Like I'm not gonna be able to do things like date because it'd be unfair to like put someone through like the lifestyle of like dating like a banker.
Yeah.
I was also like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to get a dog for a while or anything. And I was like,
okay.
damn, I was like, that just sounds so sad. It's like all the things I can't do because of this job. And it's like, I feel like a job or like whatever vocation you get into should like enable you to do more, not do less.
Dang. I agree with that. Man, like, isn't that just so weird how we're so okay with just dreading our job though? Like that's the thing. We both said just now, like, yeah, we weren't looking forward to it, but we were still okay with it, I guess, in a sense, because we knew it felt like we had to, like for it, whether it was you for your parents or I guess me just for validation that like I had worked hard so I deserved to make this money or something like that. I don't know. And just for it all to be washed away the day that we started knowing that like, oh, well, we actually don't like it that much anymore after we started.
I mean, let's be real. Like, I never liked it at all.
Yeah.
It was just like,
no, exactly, exactly. Yeah, or sorry, yeah, it was just. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. Which like, okay, I'm curious to hear. Okay, before I'll save like what I was gonna ask in my head. Or actually, I'll write it down while I ask this question.
Okay.
But before we get into that, what made you want to go into investment? And like, yeah, it's like you're getting asked at an interview. What made you want to go into investment banking? And
like real reasons, though.
Yeah,
right?
not like the answer you would feed somebody at an interview.
Money, like money, and also wanting to kind of flex that I had this prestigious job title because. To be honest, at Purdue, at least, this is Purdue specific. We're known as like the non-target schools, right? Yeah. And so not a lot of like investment banks would come to recruit from Purdue. So it's like, oh, if I get a job in investment banking at Purdue, I am one of the few that has rose through the impossible odds.
Yes.
And I was able to claim this prize, which is a terrible work-life balance and high salary. So for me, that was worth it to just show like, I could do something that was against the odds, like to prove
Yeah.
to myself I could do it,
Yeah.
without really even thinking about what I was even getting myself into.
Yeah.
That was the key thing there. Yeah.
It's like, who are you proving yourself to? It's like no one's asking you to prove
No.
anything, but you just feel like the pressure on yourself.
Yeah. No, nobody asked me to do that. Yeah. What about you?
I think on my own, that's like, okay, obviously in hindsight, I'm able to like unpack everything more.
Yeah.
But at the time, at least I'm trying to think of like what I was like in like my like sophomore year, literally as like a 19-year-old trying to be like, yeah, I need to decide what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
How
I know.
stupid that is, especially with like how accelerated finance recruiting is.
Hate it.
But I was like, my first taste of investment banking was I was a part of like a business fraternity, and like we had to like do some project during like our pledge process where we had to like look at like potential career paths or whatever, and like I mean I fell into finance because being in the undergrad business school, I was like all these other subjects are like all the subjects are incredibly dry to me, but finance is like the one that like made sense, and I was like I was good at it.
Yeah.
I was like okay, like I'm just gonna do finance then because like it's how dumb it's like, oh, it makes sense and I'm good at it.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy it, but I'm good at it, and it makes sense, which is what a lot of people end up doing for jobs. So I went into finance. I was like, okay, what jobs are there in finance? And like, I had heard about this like mythical thing called investment banking, and you know, like just reading up on that and whatnot. Or because I did a presentation on financial services,
Okay.
and like some of the category, you know, some of the areas I was like, oh, like wealth management, like asset management, trading, investment banking, and like obviously all the stuff that I had read about investment banking was like about, oh nice,
Yeah, you hear that?
was about some ASMR,
Yeah.
was about, should I try?
Oh.
But it was about, you know, like all the stuff about investment banking that you read is like prestige, high salary, exit opportunities, like, you know, big deals, like big companies, all that. And in hindsight, okay, the reasoning that I gave when I was like in college, and it's funny, it was the same shit I would say at interviews, but it was because I had read it on like Wall Street Wasted on the internet. Like, you know, they're like, say like, oh, this is like, you know, this is what you do in an investment banker. Like, this is what I'd heard from other investment bankers I had networked with. It's like, oh, you get to work with like driven, hardworking, like motivated individuals in like diverse environments. That was literally my spiel during recruiting. Because like, you know, admittedly, I was like, yo, like, oh, I've kind of been in those situations in the past, like whether it was like playing football or like being a part of my business fraternity. I've always thrived in those sort of environments, which like I'm not going to say is necessarily wrong.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, let me just apply that plus finance. Oh, that equals investment banking.
Yeah.
Not that I couldn't be around like driven, hardworking, motivated people outside of like finance, right?
Oh, right. That
anywhere.
exists anywhere.
But it was like because I was pursuing finance and like I was like I was like investment banking. But now in hindsight, and like that's another thing. It's so dumb. Is like the reason's not even my own. I would just like you just hear one thing in one ear and then you just turn around and tell the recruiter the same thing. You tell them what they want to hear, not like which. And that's what you said. Like, oh, like what was your actual reason?
Yeah.
But like when I look back now, it was similar. Where when I unpack it, it's really me just chasing external validation.
Yeah.
Because like I really struggled with that growing up throughout college. It was like I needed to feel like I was worthy as like a human being, and like that meant everything. Like like getting good grades. You know, the gym for me was that I was like like being like ripped and like you know whatever. That was like a point of validation. Being like these like leadership roles, like, and then it was like the cherry on top was like a banking job, like a high salary. It was like I didn't realize it at the time because I wasn't like as like aware or like awake, but I was just chasing this need for external validation.
Yeah. And you know, I think especially within finance, it's like, oh, because it was just so like, you know, I guess high salary equals validation for most people.
Yeah, of course.
You know?
Yeah.
So naturally, it's like, well, you either gravitate towards that
Consulting.
consulting. Yeah, it's just those two, right?
Or like even like you know the equivalent for like other jobs like software engineer, lawyer engineer, whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, Microsoft, you know, Amazon.
Yes.
Whatever.
The tiers of being it's like within those it's like and then it's another stupid thing where it's like within those careers and there's like tiers of that where it's like oh there's like the prestigious investment banks, but it's like dude at the end of the day you're doing the same shit. You're just making PowerPoint slides and working in Excel. You're doing the same thing. yes, like your deals may be bigger, but that's just a number on a piece of paper.
And
You can't grasp onto like the $4 billion deal. Like, you know, you can't.
no,
touch
you
it.
can't. Yeah,
Like-
you have not. I mean, what do you have to show for it? Like, you can put on your resume,
Yeah,
right? Like,
great.
that's it. Now, and who's gonna read that? Like, maybe a few people.
Yeah,
recruiters that you send it
Go
to.
read it. Go read it at your funeral.
Yeah, no,
Resume at
exactly.
your funeral. Your list of deals that you finished. Whatever.
Yes, transacted a $4 billion initial public offering. You
Yeah.
know, like, who gives a crap?
Yeah.
Like, damn. So, I mean, I think it's just like people think that that's what's important to them when like that reality shatters when you start your job and you're like, wow, this is not as important to me as I thought it was. Like the day I started, I was like,
oh yeah,
oh damn,
dude.
Well, this is not it.
Dude, okay, well, a few things there. My first day as well, because I have journal entries. I was like,
Yeah.
on my first day, I was writing. I was like, I can see how this job can like take over your like life.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even doing anything on the first day. I was just sitting there and watching people.
Yeah.
But similar to your point, I think it's a big thing where, kind of like I was saying earlier, when like during recruiting, I would just like take the answer right off the internet and just tell the recruiter. It was like, yeah, that's what people do. It's like they just take someone else's answer and just like use it as their own. It's like, oh, like happiness equals money, prestige, blah, blah, blah stuff.
Yeah.
And like they just take that from someone else and they don't actually ask themselves like why it's like their answer. Because don't get me wrong, great if that's what you want, but why do you want that specifically? And like actually have a reason that's unique to you. But to that point, it's like, again, like we don't think about that where it's like, if you think about like what do you actually value and prioritize, like that'll give you a better understanding of what it is you want to do for your career, not just like, oh, like I'm just going to take this blanket definition that other people are telling me and use that as what I'm going to look for.
Yeah, and well, I think that's also the tough thing about college, which is where we discovered this career path of IB, is because it's like, well, you know, you don't really know any better because like it's tough. Also, because we're so young at that age, it like self-discovery, I feel like starts usually for most people after college, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, college, especially in business schools, I feel like it's such an echo chamber.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
which careers are like the good ones you should try to pursue?
Yeah.
And no, I could see why. Looking back, it was just so easy for, you know, I'm sure for you and like for me as well to just fall into, well, yeah, like it's seen as a good career outcome. A lot of people want to do it. Yeah. Then it makes sense for me to try to go for it as well without really even thinking about, well, like, would this fit my lifestyle that I would want? And yeah, so I think like, there's so much more of an emphasis on prestige in college because like you can flex on your fellow classmates that you have this.
Oh my
whereas
gosh.
like, you know, in the real world, it just doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when I was like in college, it was like it was like banking consulting. I was like, oh, like being like a Big Four accountant or like, oh, like being like in wealth management. I was like, I can't do that.
Right.
But similarly, I mean, I don't disagree. I agree where it's like, it's hard to reflect on things like your values and like what you want out of life until you experience like difficulty firsthand, like which we did in starting full time. But that's like why like I feel like it's so important to just like have these conversations earlier, which is like a big thing. Like obviously what I'm doing on YouTube is like trying to like get these conversations going earlier so people can just like think about it a little bit, not a lot, because like you need the experience obviously, but just like start thinking about it a little bit so that when the experience does happen, you're like ready to actually act upon it. So
yeah,
I wanted to bring this back to like one thing that I thought about. Was we mentioned like, you know, seeing like the grumpy old frustrated people, and a big thing for me, I'm curious how it was for you in Cleveland or just in general, but working in banking and just like talking to like our associates or like just like our other coworkers and just like hearing about them, like trying to get to know them or like build a connection. And I was like, very clear to me. I was like, wow, I don't want to end up like these people. And it was like, it's so easy to see that because in a lot of jobs in a business sense or like anything, like any job, just like look at the person in front of you like 5 years down the line. for us it was like associates, right?
Yeah.
Or then, or for someone else, it could be like like
Manager.
the manager,
Yeah.
like a doctor, like a resident, I don't know, whatever. But I remember, I don't know if I told you this story, but one of our associates, I'm not going to say his name, but I always appreciated that he was just very direct and like didn't like bullshit me. He would like, I'd ask him like I'd ask him like questions like, oh, like I was like, why are you doing banking?
Yeah.
And he'd be like, oh yeah, for the money. Okay, I can be real with this guy.
Yeah,
That's what I appreciated. Kind of like, you mentioned our conversation, like when I like made that first question, you're like, okay, you can kind of be like, let the guard down a bit with him. And I remember I was on a deal with him and I was asking him during like a call, like just like, he was just like a kind of set the foundation call, and I was like, dude, like, what are your priorities in life?
Yeah.
Because it was like I was like asking him like some meaningful questions, but I vividly remember him asking him that question, and what he said was, my fiance would say work. That was what came out of his mouth first, and obviously he's like, oh yeah, I'm kidding, blah blah after that, but I was like, the fact that you said that means that you've thought it, that your fiance has felt it before. And that just like broke my heart, and I was like, holy crap, like I remember like writing about this. I was like, I never want to be in a position in my life where the most important person in the world to me, like my partner, thinks that I prioritize work over anything else over her.
Yeah, that's wow. I mean, like, I think even if he was joking, I feel like all jokes have some sense of truth to it.
Especially for you as a comedian, you know.
Yeah,
that.
I know, I know that.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Yeah, and like that was. I mean, well, I didn't hear like that story specifically, but like before I just seen, just like watching some of our associates working as hard as they did, and like some of them having to pull all-nighters at the office on occasion, you're seeing that and being like, I don't know if I really want that for myself.
Yeah.
Like they say, like the thing in banking is like, oh yeah, you stay longer, you're going to have less hours. Well, actually, you're gonna have less hours like 10 years down the line, when you become more of a senior person, but you just gotta grind it out until then. Like, bro, who wants to waste that? Dude, that's every single month, regardless. Like, put aside 10 years, like a month is so much time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we were able to turn our lives around from quitting banking till now in like, what, a year and a half?
Yes.
So imagine like what these people could have been doing had
Yes.
they just really thought about, because I highly doubt all of them wanted, love, and live banking in their blood, right?
Sure.
Like none of that.
Yeah.
I'm sure none of them actually really believe that. So, yeah. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. I actually don't know where I was going.
No, I appreciate it. No, and I have a lot to say about that. We're like,
yeah.
No, that's a great like point to kind of bounce off of, or to start. And then it's like and it's like we're just talking about associates here. But then it's like you extrapolate that more, like, 10 years, 15 years. It's like, okay, yeah, you're an associate, you're still like, early mid-20s, maybe you have like a girlfriend or like a serious partner, but you don't have a family yet. But then you look like our VPs, our directors, and MDs, like people with like families, like kids, and it doesn't get any better. Like that time our MD was on a call, like someone made a joke about like, he literally had his kid because his kid was like, whatever.
Oh my
like,
God.
like crying.
Yeah.
And someone's like, oh, like, do we have like a future? I think it was like our group head was like, oh, do we have like a future banker on our hands?
So cringe.
And then our MD on like a call with like, what, like 40, 50 plus people was like,
yeah,
I would never want my kid to like enter this godforsaken life or like career.
he said something to that for effect. Yeah.
Yeah. That was awkward. But and then it's like, okay, that's what it is. Like, okay, you literally get to see how the movie ends if you stay on this track. You get to end up as in like a middle-aged, like stressed, still stressed, more stressed, honestly.
Yeah.
Because now you're the one dealing with like the client and not having time for your kids, or like not, if you have time, you're not present because you're always checking emails or being stressed. And it's like, wow, you say it gets better, but to me it doesn't. All you get is paid more. But that's it. And it's like you're just saying that to us because you just want to justify your own decisions to pursue this.
Agreed, man.
Yeah.
Agreed. I would even like I don't know if I ever told you this about when I had that chat with Andy, our group head, before
Okay.
I quit.
Yeah.
And he was telling me, man, he was like, if I could do it all over again, I would not have chosen this
I do
career
remember you
path.
talking about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
he like doesn't get to go home for like dinners with his daughter. Daughters
He
right
said
now.
that. Yeah, he told me that. He was like, there's a lot of time that I wish I could get back with my family, which I'll never get back, but it's like I've already done this for so long, you know what I mean? And like that's the thing is I feel like a lot of people have the sunk cost fallacy.
Of course, yeah.
They're like, "Oh, I'll just keep going with it because you know what? I already put in the effort. I already put in the time to get to where I am. Also, I make so much money, right?
Yeah.
Like, why give it away?
Yeah.
Well, actually, you're losing out on just like being alive.
Yeah.
And, like,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
I have a few thoughts there that I'm gonna kind of redirect it, but like to start, it's like the crazy thing is like he's clearly made a lot in his time. It's like he's like late whatever, like 50s, whatever, 60s. He could quit any time, right? He's like he's made
Yeah.
enough money to like be able to live off that, and like yes, like he's like lost that time, but why continue losing that time? You can quit and like start to spend that time like for yourself or like with your wife or your kids.
Yeah.
Just because like, you've already gone this route this far does not mean you have to keep going. I think that's the biggest thing. Like that makes me sad to hear because like again like that's like a full grown dude with a family that still feels powerless and helpless because of like golden handcuffs and like not
Right.
knowing like what's out there.
Yeah.
It just goes all the way up the chain.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And, like I want to redirect because you mentioned the great thing where it's like we're like a year and a half into our I guess like a year and a half into like our working careers, like a little over a year post quitting, like a year and like a few months, and we're coming up on that 2 year mark, which is the fabled 2 year and the end of the 2 year analyst stint, right? Where it's like that's a very common thing, and then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, then you get to go to the promised land of private equity where the hours are slightly better, the pay is like the pay is a little worse, but you get more time back. And then it's like, you realize it's like, it's the same crap. It's the same crap. Nothing's really better.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, like you put in a great point where it's like, every month is a month that you never get back. And I think about let's call it like 14 months maybe. Like a little, let's say 14 months.
Yeah.
14 months since both of us have quit. And I think about all the experience, and like, that's not even we still have another like 3 months until we hit like the 2 year mark. I think about what I've been able to experience, the change and growth I've been able to have, the impact I've been able to have on people in the past 14 months. And if you told me that that would just have not existed if I had stayed in banking, I don't know if I could live with that. And it just goes to show, it's like, how much you can really change your life, how much you can really grow, and how much like impact you can have in that time if you know what you want to do, and you have like if you follow like what's true in your heart, and you stay true to that. And I want to hear about like your experience in the past, because when was your first video?
My first video was actually, it might even be like, I don't know if it's today, tomorrow, or day after. It's like a 1 year.
Oh my gosh! Wait! Oh wait! I didn't know that. Oh shoot!
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wait, we gotta celebrate. Wait, we gotta celebrate that.
Yeah.
Like, so I feel like okay. Obviously, you did like the sketch writing beforehand, but like this is sort of like your official like you're sharing it publicly. You're
Yeah.
not just like sharing it with like Drake and I or like your friends and family, but you're sharing publicly. You're making like obviously I'll link it, but like, you're making like some genuinely like hilarious
Thank you.
videos and like. I told you all the time, it's like just like the way that you edit, like what you've been able to like teach yourself in terms of like editing and like all that. I'm like, this is so well edited for like someone who's like just starting on YouTube, and I would just like love to hear about your experience the past like year of being on YouTube. Like, how did it feel? How did it feel posting your first video?
Yeah.
And kind of like, however you want to take this question, like this is just like you can change your like whatever you want.
Yeah.
But how has the journey been for you as like a creative now, and just like in terms of like the, just in terms of your life as a whole, like how does it fit in?
Oh man. Yeah, I guess I'll start with like, posting my first video and just getting started on YouTube. I think it was it was a mix of like was very nervous, I think, because I was like, oh, I'm putting myself onto the internet for the first time, and people are gonna see me, and like, I did have these thoughts of like, oh, what if people think my videos are like actually cringe? And I'm sure there's still people who think that, which is fine. Like, you think whatever you want about my stuff, but like, I cared a lot more about what people thought of my stuff back then than I do now, and that's changed because now I'm like, well, I like what I make, and what I make does feel good to me. So why should I care if someone thinks that my stuff is cringe? Although I will say, if I look at my first video compared to like my latest videos, I will say I think there is an improvement there.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit less cringe. So, it's been really, really great to just see like that improvement over time, and just like teaching myself how to like make new edits or like new ways of shooting a certain scene. Like, I'm like sort of learning how to be a filmmaker on the side too.
Yes.
And like, through learning all of these new skills, like, it's just been, the curiosity journey of specifically within the YouTube and like filmmaking realm has been such an amazing ride, and like, it's the happiest I've ever been, just because I'm like learning stuff all the time, and I'm constantly trying to make myself better as a creative person, as every creative person I think should be, always reinventing yourself.
Yeah.
And oh, sorry, my phone.
You're good.
I'm just gonna silence this real quick because I feel like it's been going off. But it's really been like, even though I feel like, even though my videos haven't like made it big or whatever, it's been the most fulfilling for me because I'm putting my best effort into the work that I put out, and I feel like it is a representation of who I am and how I'm evolving. Like, as my channel evolves, it's like my personal growth with that, and it's made me so like, I don't know, just so like thankful that I was able to have those conversations with you, because without that, I would literally just not be doing any of this. Like, so, sorry, what was the question that you started with?
You're good.
I kind of went off there.
No, that was beautiful. Well, the question was, how did you feel after your first video, which like you described, and then how does your creative journey fit into the context of your life now?
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, no.
I can expand a little bit more on that too.
Yes.
I think all my life it's like you think you can plan your life out, and you think you'll know at which ages you'll be doing what, and that's how I felt when I was starting my finance job. Like, oh, I have these like 2 years for this, 2 years for like this next job. But I mean, I think it really goes to show you that like, like first of all, when you're finally doing something that like really matters to you, you can, I don't know, it just like changes everything about the way you want to plan your life, and like the plan right now is I have no plan. Almost. It's like, I just want to do whatever I want to do that brings me the most joy. And right now it's a mix of making videos, making some beats here and there. And it's just been like very free flowing, I would describe it as, because I don't think you should ever constrain yourself into a box. So, I mean, I don't know, it's just freeing. If I were to describe the whole thing wrapped in one word, it's like, it's just freeing, and it just feels like I'm being me.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah.
That's an awesome answer. Can we cheers to that really quick?
Yeah. Water clink to that, right?
That's awesome. And so like, I want to build off that and like really just address a lot of what you said. But to start, it's like, that's the thing. It's like you're just following like your curiosity and like what you're having. That's like one thing I've always admired about you, is that you're always trying new things. Because I remember like when you started off YouTube, And then I remember you telling me, you're like, yeah, I want to start making beats. And I was like, dude, that is so cool. And then you were talking to me and explaining to me about it. I was like, this sounds so awesome. And I remember telling you, I was like, oh, like, dude, who knows? Like, because I remember, like, I think you had done YouTube, gone to the beat making, and like focused on beat making for a bit. And I remember, like, we were having that conversation. I was like, dude, who knows? Maybe like one day you'll like combine like the music and beat making and like YouTube together. And lo and behold, yeah, right.
I did make a video.
Lo and behold, you made a video, and like they
Yeah.
came together in that sense.
Yeah.
Which is so awesome. And like, that's the thing. It's like you're always learning. You're always just like having fun. And a few other things here, and I'm just like going in random order. But like, you talked about comedy for you being this way to, you know, when you're going through hard times, like just be able to like laugh.
Yeah.
Be able to like laugh and make light of a situation, or also to like be able to feel like understood, you know, like with what you're going through. And like, you know, I've read through some of the comments on your videos, and like very much so you are being that person for people. You know, it's like you're clearly making people laugh. That's so evident. Yes, you're gonna have some haters, but like that's what's gonna happen with comedy, especially.
Sure.
But like also, it's like you're talking about topics that people have experienced themselves, or like you're also validating their own thoughts and experiences, just as much as like, you know, I might have been for you with that first question back in like the fall of like when we first started, and just as much as you were for me when we were having those conversations in like December, early 2022. And I'm also going on a tangent, but like a few things here as well, where it's like, to that point, it's like, it's so important. I'm so grateful for you in the sense of like, just being able to have like one person to like actually be like, you're not crazy.
Yeah,
You know, that's literally what it is. It's like, you're not crazy for like hating this job. You're not crazy for like wanting to like pursue something outside of a typical 9 to 5. You're not crazy for like wanting to like live a life that is like, you know, true to yourself and all that. That means so much to me. That's like, I'm always like so grateful for our friendship and like how it's evolved and like the bond that we have, because like we've literally gone through every single like stage as like a person and like from like a career standpoint in that sense together, and it's only grown like more aligned, which I'm just so grateful to share this journey with you.
Yeah.
And my voice is getting dry, but like my last two bits here is like, I think about it now, and it's like, it really, like, admittedly, it's like we probably, if you okay, also like let's caveat here, corporate day jobs like 9 to 5s, the 40-hour week jobs, you're not working the full 40 hours, but for illustrative sakes, we'll say like, yeah, it's a 9 to 5 is 40 hours. In banking, let's say like the number's like 80, and like yes, there's gonna be some parts where like, oh, I work 100 or whatever, but like let's just say 80. Like all in all, when I think about the amount of time that like I work my day job on top of like the creative work that I'm doing, whether it's like writing or YouTube, I'm easily putting in like upwards of like 60, like 40 plus the day job. I'm easily putting in like between 60 and 80 hours of, you know, in a given week on,
Sure.
you know, day job plus creative stuff, you know, but I'm like, I obviously love it way more. I don't dread it. Do I like the day job? No. But it, like just being able to know that I get to work on this creative stuff is just so much more exciting. It's like, yeah, it's still 80 hours is 80 hours, but how the 80 hours is structured is so much different.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you almost don't even look at it as like work, right? Like, I mean, yeah, sure, it's 80 hours, but it's different when you're 80 hours stuffing your head in Excel spreadsheets versus, you know, getting to do what you enjoy and find as like a mental, I mean, I wouldn't call it like a mental break when you're working on creative stuff, but it's just like, it just feels like you're doing something fun, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's not like work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I've seen you've texted me at like 2 a.m. before. I mean, I don't, because I just given like how I operate, I don't stay up that late.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'll get a text from you at like 2 a.m. about like you like working on like a video project. I'm like, dude, this guy is seriously grinding right now. And it's like grinding at 2 a.m. in like if we were working in banking or like another job, does not feel the same when you're just like, holy crap, I just want to go to bed. Like, but like you're up at 2 a.m. because you're like energized by it. Because you literally can't fall asleep because it's so exciting to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember what it was. After I've texted you so many times at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Excited about
something. I love waking up to a text from you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. but yeah, I mean, those, like, seriously, man, like, being able to wake up every day in the morning to be able to, like, know that today after work, like, I'm gonna be able to do something that's like fun, and like it keeps you going. It like really keeps me going, and like feels like I have more of like a purpose now.
Of course.
Yeah, before I feel like we were just kind of existing, right? Like
Of course.
just cells floating around on the, in
Yeah.
the universe. But now, I mean, you know, whether people like our stuff or not, it's just like,
Yeah.
it feels like we have like a more, I don't want to call it like a higher purpose, but it's just like
it is.
We're
Yeah.
doing something. Well, firstly, it's important to us, but like could also make an impact on others. Like that's.
I mean, dude,
more than
I don't think you have to downplay it. It's by all means a purpose, and like I think that's again like ikigai, right? Ikigai is like your purpose for being, or like why you get up in the morning. Very much like, not to speak for both of us, but like I see like the creative work that we do as like a vessel for our purpose, right?
Yeah.
I see like for me like the YouTube, the writing as like my way to serve others, just as much as for you. It's like whether it's making comedy like sketch videos or like whatnot, being able to, like we said earlier, make people laugh, put a smile on their face, help them get through hard times. That sounds like very much purpose oriented to me. Or it's like whether it's like making music that like makes people feel something, or like puts them in like a good mood, or like helps them like like if you start adding lyrics to it, like helping tell their story. That's very much serving a higher purpose. And like I feel like people are afraid to use that word because it sounds like so like woo woo or like lofty or cheesy. But like by all means, it is a purpose, right? It's like why you are here, and it is one that is unique to you.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just sitting and plugging numbers in Excel and moving shapes around in PowerPoint.
Genuinely, if you feel like that's your purpose, I mean, I but I highly doubt.
I'm hard pressed to believe. Oh, this is another thing where I'm like, dude, no one. Correct. Maybe there's someone out there, but I'm like, don't. Like you might be interested in finance, but are you passionate about finance?
Yeah.
There's a big difference. And it's like, that's the thing, where it's like, you can be interested in a lot of things, but you're passionate about it. Like, I'm interested in, like, I don't know, like, rocks. Like, I'm interested in, like, sewing. But, like, am I passionate about it? No. Like, if you just told me to, like, on the spot, have, like, a conversation about, like, rocks or sewing, which, I mean, I'm not interested in, but, like, hypothetically, I would not be able to. And, like both our current day jobs are in, like, finance.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been able to have this conversation with you. Well, also, I'm not interested in either, but like, for all the people who say they're interested in finance or whatever, it's like, try to have like an hour or 2 hour long conversation about it. And can you put your hand over your heart and feel it when you talk about it? That's my test.
No, I think you'd be hard pressed to find some people who are genuinely curious about, or genuinely passionate about those things. And that's the thing, right? Like, it's so sad that we have to just like fake interest nowadays, right?
Yeah.
In so many of these topics, because they will get us the careers that we want.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I don't have too much more to say about that other than just like, damn, like it feels kind of fake nowadays with, interests and passions.
Yeah. And I guess like some other thoughts here is like, I guess like, how does it feel for you having like such like a robust, like, passion and like, like time that you're putting towards these things that you care about a lot with music and like video, and still navigating like a corporate job? Because I'm just like speaking from experience here as well, where it's like people just like aren't interested. It's like, it's something that you're so excited about clearly, yet other people are just like kind of like meh towards it. They'll like ask about it to be nice, but like no one's like actually excited by it. Like when I hear you talk about this stuff, I'm like, I'm not even doing music or anything, but like I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I just like love hearing about it. But for like people like working like our coworkers, it's just like, oh, that's cool, you do music or you do YouTube. It's like, cool. Like, so can you get this to me by like noon?
Yeah, no, I know. Like, so are you more asking like, oh, like how are people's reactions like when you tell them?
And like I guess like how do you feel about like kind of like the responses that you, or like just like how people like when people hear that you do like YouTube and comedy, it doesn't even have to be coworkers. It could be like
Yeah.
people you meet, like, mutual friends or acquaintances, like, what's like the response, or like, how do you feel towards those responses?
Yeah, I think the usual response is like, oh, yeah, no, that's really cool, right? Like
Yeah.
they want to try to like be interested in, like, I appreciate that they're even asking, if to even get to that point, because sometimes they'll ask, oh, like,
Sure.
are there hobbies you have? And I'll tell them about like YouTube, music, and of course they'll start off like, that's cool, but then it doesn't really escalate any further. I mean, maybe they'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, you should send me some stuff if you have it, right? Like, that's kind of the furthest it goes. It's not like, oh, what inspires you, or like, what do you really like about it, or do you have any favorite musicians or YouTubers that you really look up to? It's usually stays very surface level, and I get it to an extent. Is like, maybe they're maybe their current priorities are not like super. They're not like a very in a creative
Yeah.
like mindset or whatever it is. But I don't know. I think it could be cool, because all the meaningful conversations I've had in the recent past few years is just with people who are able to like go deeper and talk
Yeah.
about things that mean stuff to them,
Yes.
right? Whereas, like, I mean, are you ever gonna remember a conversation about like learning about someone's like new dog or something like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I just got a puppy, or like, oh, great, like, I'm happy that you just had your first kid, right? Like, that's awesome, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like I want to learn more about you as a person,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you telling me about stuff that you did over the weekend, which is fine. That
Yeah.
These are conversations that are okay to have. I'm not going to say that we should never have these conversations, but I really want to get past all the smaller talk.
Yeah.
stuff.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I hear you. And it's like same with me, where it's like people like will ask me like like they'll like, oh, you do YouTube, and then like, they'll ask me like what my videos are about, and it's like, oh, that's cool, and it just like trails off. It's like, I don't know. For me, like, just personally, it's like if I hear someone's doing something creative, I'm like, yo, send me like some of your writing, send me your video, send me your song. Like, my director like is in a band and all that, and I listen to his album because I'm like, I don't know if he's watched one of my videos, but I don't expect him to, but like I'm like that guy, and it's like I want people to feel like I'm interested in them for who they are, not because I'm just like trying to like put up a front. Like, I'm not just like, I'm not saying it or asking these questions to like for show. It's like I genuinely want to know you for who you are, and I don't want to hear the Facebook status updates. I want to hear about like, what do you actually care about?
Yeah.
And I think it's a big thing, right? Like, we tie back to like the beginning of the conversation, where it's like, if you know what you care about, find a career, vocation, whatever, that fits into what you care about.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's so just like kind of, it's unfortunate that like we don't believe that we can find, careers that help us sustain our lives while also aligning with what we care about. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to add one thing really quick. So what does it mean for you to be creative? You mentioned that. I think this is because I asked this because like this is a big thing.
Yeah.
Like, I talk about creativity. A lot of people are like, I'm not a creative person. But like, I want to, before I say anything, because that's something I'm very, I have a lot to say about that. What is your definition of being creative?
Man, I mean, and I feel like everyone's definition can be different,
Sure.
right? I think for me, being creative is just, I think at the very baseline definition for me is like being able to, do something like, I'm like, maybe I'm overthinking this. I think being able to do something that is like, firstly, it would mean something to you.
Okay.
And it isn't just like a fill in the blank, like there's a right answer.
Okay.
Like it's ambiguous.
Sure. Yeah.
I guess
Yeah,
it's like it's not like there's a right way to do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's yeah, I think it's kind of like for me, just in my own life as an example, just like there's no right way to make a comedic commentary
Sure.
video. You make fun of something the way you want to make fun of
course.
something, and do it in a way that feels aligned to how you would actually do it and would make you enjoy the process of it.
Okay.
I guess that's how I would define it. Sorry, that took me like a really
that's
long time to
fine.
get there,
No,
but I had
that's
to
awesome.
like figure that out
Yeah.
just talking
Dude,
about
no,
it. Yeah.
no, that was cool to like just watch you kind of listen to you do that. And
Yeah.
it's like my follow up question to that is like you talk about something that's like meaningful to you or something that you would enjoy. So, what in particular about some of the comedy that you personally watch or like the videos you make, like what are like the themes, right, between the two, like the commonalities between what you watch and what you make, like what makes it meaningful and like enjoyable to you?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I like to bring something to people's attention, which I personally have, maybe gripes, like comedic gripes or like issues with.
Sure.
And this is more specifically with the videos.
Yeah.
And it could be with my music too. We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see.
Okay.
But I think because if I were to make a video making fun of something I don't care about, well then like why would I even make this? Like, because then the passion's not going to show through
course.
when I'm talking about it. And in all the videos where I've watched like my favorite comedians make fun of something, they're usually talking about a topic that I think is also like or not easy to make fun of, but like I agree with all of their points.
Yes.
And I really like the way that they made fun of this topic or like had their jokes. And so I like to kind of model myself after them. And sorry, can you say the question one more time?
Oh,
I don't
dude,
know
I love
if I
that.
even answered that.
Yeah, it was like, okay, like, so you talked about creativity being like you're creating work that feels meaningful to you and
Yeah.
it's something you would enjoy. So for you, right, because, like oftentimes like the inspiration comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
So for you, like when it comes to like the stuff that you personally watch that you find meaningful or enjoy,
Yeah.
and then also pairing that with like the stuff that you personally create, what are the, like, where do you draw like that inspiration from?
Yeah.
And like, what are the common themes between the two, like of like what you watch and what you create, like,
Gotcha.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, honestly, the theme is just, like the biggest thing with videos is like what makes a good video for me is like relatability. That's at the end of the day, I think that's relatability and being like, oh yeah, I think that's annoying too.
Yeah.
I would make fun of that. Or for your videos, it's like, oh, I resonate with everything that you just said. Like I felt those feelings of like maybe like being inadequate or like not, hating my job. So it's like being able to connect with the viewer and hopefully with some of my videos, I've brought up topics where people can also be like, oh yeah, this is something that I like. This is a topic where I can see myself making fun of this, or like I don't like this,
Yeah.
and I agree that he made fun of this for a good reason.
Yeah.
That's my line
Yeah.
of thinking there. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I think you bring up a great point. It's like relatability, and it's like it's relatable because it's coming from your personal experience, and it's like chances are if you experienced it, someone else has experienced it too. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely. But I'd love to hear like your answer as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
And like I think and my definition of I totally agree with you. Everyone's definition of creativity is different, just as much as like what I'll say now is different from the one you gave.
Yeah.
But I believe that I believe that creativity is the purest form of self-expression. Where, and I feel like a lot of what I'm going to say is going to tie into like what you were just talking about, where it's like it's the purest form of self-expression, where you are in whatever vehicle or medium you're using, putting forth your authentic self, your experiences, your thoughts, your emotions. And the thing is, that can be, right? It's like, it can be anything. It can be music, it could be writing, it could be video, it could be a podcast. It can literally be a conversation. That's what I think is the awesome part about like this conversation, podcast, this conversation is like, did we not just like express our authentic like selves, our thoughts, feelings, and experience? I think we did a lot. I think we did a lot of that throughout this conversation, right?
Yeah.
And like that's the thing. It's like I feel like that's just the lens that I view creativity from. But it really is just down to self-expression and being yourself, which you do a great job of.
Thank you.
And ultimately, it's like we could all use a bit more self-expression in our lives.
Yeah.
And we could all be a little bit more of ourselves. And I feel like creativity is like the greatest vessel for that. Because like you said earlier, it's like, what do you like, there is no right or wrong way to do it. That's the thing about creativity. There's no right or wrong way. There's only the way that feels right to you, that you're having fun doing, because it feels like you're just playing. It feels like, again, it's like you feel like that sense of like, you mentioned this earlier with like your sentiment towards, or how you feel towards your creative path, or like your future in life in general. You feel so much like freedom.
Yeah.
And it's like, you feel like, I think back to like when I'm a kid, and like I'm just like creating and like just making stuff. I feel so free, because there is no right or wrong way to do it. And like whatever's in front of me, whether it's like a piece of paper, like a canvas, like an empty video file, I can turn that into anything. And it's so freeing to me. So that's what like creativity is to me.
Dude. And like, just thinking about the world that we live in today.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like a sort of a tangent, kind of related to what you said.
Go for it.
But I feel like, just think about all the products that like we use today, right? Like that is the result of someone just making something that they thought was like cool,
right?
And was like probably just something they wanted to make, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like literally everything. Yeah, it's just a like random thought that I had, but I was like, wow.
I love that, because think about it, right? Let's like, this is a great example. It's like this like small pocket-sized notebook that you pointed out earlier. It's like someone was probably like, if you think back to like the medieval ages, where they had like the long like scrolls and like fumble out, like
yeah.
That's like, then eventually it was like, this is a pain in the ass. Let me put it into like a
portable
form. And then it was like, they were still pretty big and massive. Then it was like, okay, let me like turn it into like a smaller notebook or journal.
Yep.
And then someone else was like, okay, well, this is still too big. Wait, let me make one that's like big enough to put in my pocket, which this one is for me.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't want to carry like a thick, clunky journal or notebook if I just want to quickly jot a note down.
Yep.
And someone had that experience or that thought, and boom, they created this. And now I have it in my hands.
I mean, so the world would be a better place, I think, if everyone, like the world would literally maybe even be a more convenient and like cooler place if everyone just like did stuff that they wanted to do instead of just thinking that they had to do certain things.
Okay.
Right?
So that brings up a good point.
Yeah.
My question to you is like, so what about those people who feel like, you just said that, like, like if everyone just like did like what they wanted to do, then it will be a better place. But like, what about those people who like feel like they are not able to do what they want to do? They've got like responsibilities or like, I don't know, like circumstances that they're like, I can, I have to like support my parents, or I got to pay like off like my student loans, or like X, Y, and Z. I can't do what I want to do. Like, what would you say to them, or like, what are your thoughts around that?
I mean, it's just putting yourself. See, like that's that. I mean, that's a tough question too, but I feel like it's, even if you can't explicitly have like, a ton of free time just to work on yourself, because I agree, not everyone has the privilege to have that freedom of just being able to do whatever they want, whenever they want. It's like, maybe just like position yourself the best way that you can in order to eventually reach that point where you can start doing more creative things. I mean, of course it's going to vary for each person's situation, but it's like if someone is like has a ton of student loans and they need like they need like a high paying job, or they think they need a high paying job because like their student loan balance is like gigantic or whatever. Just, making sure that in the meantime, you're like keeping sight of that goal you want to reach. I think that's sort of the difference between someone who takes that high paying job just because of taking the high paying job and it's like cool and validation, versus like someone who's taking that high paying job because they know that they need it for their family, loans, whatever.
Yeah.
But having an end goal of like, okay, well, once this student loan is paid off, once I help out my parents, now I can go ahead and like have this time to do something, and I'll take another job that takes up less of my time, right?
Yeah, and I'd also argue, I guess like sort of like in a counter, but also again pseudo agreement. But like I'd argue, and like my way of thinking about it's like try to inject what brings you like. First off, start by taking time to like think for yourself, like what do you actually want, like what do you enjoy, what do you value, and aligning your life in that way, and then asking yourself like, okay, what brings me joy, and even if it's like for like little pockets of the day, injecting it into your life. And making sure that, because at least my spot is like start now with what you have and the way you're able to do.
Sure.
Don't wait, because like when or if isn't guaranteed. So it's like in any way, shape, or form right now, just start and just see how you feel. Don't just like blame the world or like whatever, and like just start and see how you feel and just go from there.
Yeah.
Right? Just take ownership. And it's easy. Obviously, it's easy for me to say that, privileged and like have a lot of opportunity. But just take ownership of like what you can control and what you do have in front of you. And like again, maybe it's like you want to be like a comic, then start by writing a joke, one joke a day.
Right.
Don't tell me you can't write a joke a day. You can write a joke when you're taking a bathroom break. You can write a joke about going to the bathroom, make a potty joke, right?
Yeah, right.
It's like
right.
It's like write like a song lyric, right? It's like think about it, right? Like a song is like how many verses, or I don't even know. You're more into music, but like you write like a line or a verse a day. Over the course of like, let's be generous, a month, you have a song. You write a page a day. Over the course of a year, that's 365 pages. That's like a pretty solid book. You don't even need that much. A book, what is a book? A book is just like some pages put together. If it's physical, or if it's digital, it's just whatever. It's like start with what you have and just do what you can. And then if you just commit to like one thing at a time and just keep seeing how you feel, I feel like that'll be a better gauge of like, maybe whether or not this is what you want to do with your current situation. If you do feel like you don't have any options or choices, like maybe there is, and it's just not in the same direction that you think it is right now.
Sure. Yeah. It's all about baby steps, building that habit of like being consistent, disciplined.
And it's like, even for like I guess like, obviously financial is a big situation, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not going to try to, pretend that it doesn't exist, but it's like, even if you are doing something to, try and work through like a challenging or difficult situation, it's like, how can you still do so in a way that you feel like you are able to endure it and like persevere through it for something that means, like something you said earlier, something that's meaningful to you in the future. And I think oftentimes like you just have to experience that every day in like little chunks to know that like this is like what I'm actually working for. Right. So I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah. So I guess like a good way to wrap up is, what are you currently struggling with as a creative?
Currently struggling with? And I mean, I'm always struggling with this, but like coming out with new ideas for videos is tough. I mean, don't get me wrong. I could probably make, have like thousands of ideas a day, but like not all of them are going to be good ideas. It's like I want to think about the things that like I genuinely want to like talk about, because I can talk about politics in a video, right? I don't actually care about that. So yeah, I think generating ideas, man, that's not always gonna be like the number one thing, but the fun part is sometimes just searching for the next idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think along the way of like going down the rabbit hole, like doing research on different topics, you sometimes come along different things and then branch off.
Yeah.
Like find more stuff you can maybe talk about in future videos,
Yes.
right? So again, it is a lot of work to come up with ideas, but it's very rewarding, I think, when that idea turns into a full project.
Yes.
That now people can see.
Yeah. Really quick, what is a good idea then to you?
Good ideas. I'd say good idea. In terms of like my comedy videos, I think it just has to start with being something where other people, like it means something to me where I think this is like a jokeable topic, but then also I think that like other people can say like, oh yeah, I agree, like that's relatable in that I think that's pretty funny too. Like because my idea of comedy is like, well, if only I think it's funny. Well, then I don't really know if being a comedian is like a great thing, because comedians want to make other people laugh, right? So that's the thing. I want to make sure other people are able to enjoy and see the humor in the subject I'm bringing up.
Yeah, you got a tough gig as a comic, but I will say it's like if it makes you laugh and you're talking from experience and relatability, good shot someone else will laugh.
That's true. That's true.
So
yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like create for yourself, and like you'll end up creating for somebody else.
Yeah.
But you have to create for yourself first. You can't create for somebody else in mind.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
What about you? What's your struggles, man?
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about this before, but I've definitely gone through phases of like the creative journey, which definitely align with like my own personal journey as a creator, like just like an individual. And it's like, I think for me right now, it's like being like, screw it. I don't really care what the conventions are on YouTube. Again, there is no right or wrong. If I want to post videos like I'm doing right now with like no editing and like no B-roll, if I'm just talking and like no cutting, I'm going to do it because I don't care. I just want to like have fun. I feel like I wasn't having fun for a while because I feel like I was just like outputting videos for the sake of outputting videos, and it felt like I was just like working a job again. And now it's just like I realize like for me, and I think it all comes down to like what do you want your videos to be like, what kind of impact you want to have, and you describe that well with like your comedic videos. And for me, it's like I just want to be able to have a conversation with somebody. It sounds so simple, but I just want to have a conversation. And I want my videos to be as close to that as possible. And when I think back to like my videos that like I definitely cringe at as well, where I felt like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I'm just being too much of someone I'm not. It's because I feel like I was trying too hard and I was trying to force a conversation. So right now it's like whatever creative stuff I'm doing, whether it's like writing or YouTube, I'm really doing so in the manner of like I just want it to be as close to a conversation as possible. But like you said, it's always a struggle. I definitely still struggle with like perfectionism and like even recording like one takes. In all honesty, it's like whatever I upload is a one take, but sometimes I'll like restart. Like I'll like mess up like the intro line. I'll be like, okay, let me just like redo that, and then just like let it rip. So I'm like working on that. Like really just like being able to talk spontaneously, like we have in this conversation, and. It's always an ongoing thing, but like letting go of like the numbers and like metrics and things like that. I think it's like always a fine line to walk as a creative, especially for us, like wanting to make it like our full-time careers. Yeah. But it's like, man, like just trusting that it'll work out. Like you said, it's like just you can never plan, but you can just trust that it'll work out and know that it'll work out, and just trying to detach from that a bit. So, yeah, that's what I've been struggling with, and working to improve on.
Man, yeah, the thing you talked about, like the numbers and the analytics sometimes. Yeah. It is something that like nags in the back of my head, like, oh, your click-through rate for this thumbnail wasn't as good as the last one. Oh, your retention time is not that good.
Like, what do those numbers even mean, man? It's like I I'm done with numbers, man. Like I spent enough time looking at numbers in our first job and like our current jobs. Yeah. But my last question for you, which I think is the all right. So it cut off, even though
Battery died, even though it said it was gonna
said
last for a
4
while.
hours.
Yeah,
It
whatever.
said 4 hours. It has not been 4 hours. But my last question, I think a good way to send this off for anyone listening, is given like the context of our conversation and like just how our journeys have been throughout our friendship and like I guess like more particular since starting our adult lives and like I guess like our career track, what are one to and again like what number you feel comfortable with, like what are like a few questions that you would plant for your younger self to ask himself?
Oh man.
Like a difference, whether it's whatever comes to mind.
Yeah. That is a really tough question, I think. Actually, do you mind if I hear some of yours?
Oh, you're
first? I want to defer to you because
Sure.
I need to think about mine for a sec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, I think about some like pretty crucial questions that like stand out, and these are like things that I journaled about, and like in hindsight, I didn't realize like how important they were to me, like when I was asking them, and like I know now. But the first one is, who am I? That's it, right? Who am I? I would say the second is like, am I living in alignment with that person? Or I guess like before I say that, who am I is one. Who do I aspire to be? Right?
Yeah.
Who do I aspire to be? And then am I living in alignment with that? Like that version of myself? I'd say that. I think I could definitely go in like more specifics and like everything and like whatever, but
Yeah, sure. We'll keep it
yeah,
simple.
I would just say like, simply who am I? Who do I want to be? And am I living my life in a way where I'm in alignment with those answers?
I think for me, I would say what's important to you?
Okay.
And do you feel like, your current goals and like the way that you're living life allows you to do or be with the things or people that are most important to you? So, yeah.
Beautiful answer. I'm gonna cheese and throw in one more.
Yeah.
What would you regret not doing by the end of this year if you knew that next year didn't exist? Yeah.
All right.
It's a good way to end it.
Yeah. Some
All right.
reflection questions,
There you go.
There we
All
go.
right, dude. This is awesome. Nice.
Woo!
Cool.